The Senate Committee on Natural Resources will now come to order. Will the Secretary please call roll?
Senator Cruz Crawford, Chair.
Here.
Senator Scheibel, Vice Chair.
Here.
Senator Kaziner.
Present.
Senator Hansen.
Here.
And Senator Ellison.
Present.
We have a quorum. Welcome to our audience in Carson City and those joining via video conference in Las Vegas, and everyone tuning in, on the internet. Before we start, I am going to share a few housekeeping items. Remember, when you're testifying, please turn your microphone on to speaker on, and when you're done, turn it off to listen. We have listeners and viewers in Las Vegas and online, and we're recording this meeting. It will be available on the legislature's website following the meeting. Or my favorite, YouTube, because you can fast forward. If you have handouts for the committee, please provide 10 copies to the committee secretary prior to your testimony. In addition, any exhibits or amendments must be submitted electronically as PDF file to our committee manager no later than 3:30 p.m. 24 hours before the meeting. Sorry, I was hearing a noise, so I didn't know. The committee information is available on Nellis, which can be accessed through the legislature's website. You may also watch our meeting on Nellis or our legislator's YouTube channel. We ask that public comments be kept to 2 minutes. We are timing you. Please don't make us look mean by telling you to stop. If you go over, you can always submit written testimony to the secretary, and that will be that can be submitted before, during, or up to 24 hours after the meeting. Members of the public may provide testimony on a bill either in person or by telephone. And finally, please mute your electronic devices, especially your cell phones. You might see us on our devices. That's the way we conduct business, so please don't think that's us ignoring you. Anyways, I hope everybody's having a great day. I got to fly in last night and see a beautiful sunset, so I'm now going to make sure that I either see a sunset or a sunrise every time I book my flight, because that was great. Looking at our beautiful Nevada landscapes. So today we're going to have a 15-minute presentation, and then we're also going to hear Senate Bill 10. And today our 15-minute overview presentation is by the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. We have Julie Reagan. Hey, Julie. And we have Devin Middlebrook also presenting today. Go ahead and begin when you are ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Cruz Crawford, Vice Chair Scheibel, committee members, staff, and the public. For the record, my name is Julie Reagan, spelled R-E-G-A-N, and I'm the Executive Director of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. Joining me today is Devin Middlebrook, TRPA's Government Affairs Manager. Thank you for inviting us to present an overview of TRPA and our current priorities. I also wanted to thank Senator Scheibel for her participation on the Interim Oversight Committee for TRPA and the Marlette Lake Water System last year. And finally, I'd like to recognize several of our governing board members here today in the audience, our Chair, Haley Williamson, and members Alexis Hill and Shelley Aldine. Thank you for joining. I know a few of you have already heard about TRPA this session, so without being overly duplicative, I'd like to focus today's presentation on the Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program and TRPA's role leading this nationally recognized conservation program. And for those of you who may have heard other bits and pieces, there will be a quiz later. No pressure. A little history to begin with. To start, it's important that we look at Tahoe's modern history. Following the 1960 Winter Olympics at Palisades Ski Resort, Lake Tahoe was at a critical crossroads as rapid development threatened its future. Plans were developed for the region to grow the size of San Francisco, complete with a multi-lane freeway circling the basin and a bridge across the mouth of Emerald Bay, as you can see in this rendering from the time. In response to these plans, in 1969, Nevada and California established the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, our organization, with the consent of Congress through a bi-state compact. This December, just a few months ago, we celebrated our 55th anniversary. There is no bridge over Emerald Bay today, and instead of freeways ringing the top, it is now the Rim Trail, which millions of people have enjoyed over the years for recreational purposes. Tahoe is truly a conservation success story. Today, 90% of the Tahoe Basin's land is protected and in public ownership. The federal government is the largest landowner with nearly 80% of Tahoe's land managed by the U.S. Forest Service. Additionally, the state of Nevada owns and manages some of Tahoe's most beautiful recreation and natural areas along Tahoe's east shore, which I'm sure you'll be covering this session. TRPA's strict growth management system limits the total amount of development that can happen on the remaining 10% of Tahoe's land that's privately owned. Collectively, today, only 2% of the basin's privately owned land remains yet undeveloped. And it's important to look at history over time in terms of the development pattern. The majority of private development occurred prior to the adoption of TRPA's first regional plan and growth management system back in 1987. That's the very large bar midway down the graph. This system slowly meters private development through development rights allocations. Additionally, state and federal governments have purchased and retired more than 9,000 private parcels scattered throughout the basin in urban neighborhoods. And this further reduces the total development potential in the region. However, as you drive around Lake Tahoe, you'll notice that much of the past development in the region is still standing today and negatively contributes to Tahoe's environmental, community, and economic health. The 2012 regional plan promotes environmentally beneficial redevelopment by removing old buildings and those recognized in the early years of Tahoe's growth, which are often located in sensitive environments, and then we direct them into town centers, creating more vibrant community spaces that are walkable, pedestrian-oriented, and connected to transit. So the regional plan is really the organizing principle for this. At Tahoe, we like to say our environment is the economy, and our economy is the environment. Overall, Tahoe supports a $5 billion annual economy with outdoor recreation and tourism making up 60% of the economy. The regional plan strikes a balance between the environment and economy through land use planning and redevelopment incentives. Since 2012, TRPA has approved more than 300 transfers of development. In turn, this has spurred more than $430 million in private investment in our economy. Over the next several years, major investments are being made on the Nevada side of the lake, including the remodel of the nearly 100-year-old Calneva Hotel right at the state line in Crystal Bay, and the proposed Barton Health Hospital project in South Lake Tahoe. At Tahoe, private development directly funds environmental projects through the collection of mitigation fees by TRPA. And from 2019 to 2024, we collected more than $17 million in mitigation funds and distributed $8.9 million to 63 different environmental improvement projects. This is just one example of public-private partnerships that are alive and well in Tahoe. In addition to our history and core work program, I just want to highlight a few strategic priorities. Our Tahoe Living Strategic Initiative is looking at ways TRPA can reduce barriers to developing affordable and workforce housing, a huge challenge for us. Following the COVID-19 pandemic and rise of remote working, Tahoe's housing prices increased while local wages have not kept pace. For many residents, the possibility of home ownership is now completely out of reach. Our Restoration and Resilience Initiative is where we remain committed to our mission to protect Tahoe's environment, and we're building regional resilience to ensure the safety of our communities from extreme events such as catastrophic wildfires. And third, our Keeping Tahoe Moving initiative is addressing Tahoe's transportation challenges, including congestion at the popular recreation sites, roadway safety, think Highway 28, evacuation, and providing transportation options to underserved communities. To restore the damage of the past and support a vibrant environment into the future, we are proud to lead the Environmental Improvement Program, which is a collaboration of more than 80 public and private partners. Together, this partnership has implemented more than 800 projects since 1997. One of the leading indicators of the impacts to Tahoe's environment is the loss of our famed water clarity. Historical records show that you could see more than 100 feet down into the lake. But now, but by the 1990s, Tahoe's clarity loss meant you could only see down around 65 feet. The loss of clarity led to the creation of the Environmental Improvement Program following the first presidential summit of 1999, and we've maintained that tradition of a summit every August ever since. So now, more than 25 years later, the success of our restoration efforts can be seen in the stabilization of this lake clarity loss, which you can kind of see from all the Secchi discs on the graph. The 5-year clarity average is at 65.3 feet, but the average doesn't tell the story. In 2023, winter clarity was measured at 91.8 feet and summer clarity at only 53 feet. Projects to reduce stormwater and reaching Tahoe have made major gains in clarity during the winter months, when stormwater runoff is the primary cause of clarity loss. However, the science community has raised the fact that declining summer clarity is an emerging area of concern where we need to take additional actions. There are a few focus areas of the Environmental Improvement Program I'd like to point out: watersheds and water quality, forest health, sustainable recreation and transportation, and science, stewardship, and accountability. The work under these focus areas contributes to the region meeting its environmental goals, which we call environmental threshold standards. TRPA is releasing its latest 4-year report on the status of our 140 standards at the end of this month. We play a critical role in coordinating the Environmental Improvement Program. Coordinating with 80 partners and the public requires dedicated staff and a vast infrastructure to manage. The focus of this coordination is the development and implementation of projects, 800 strong. With limited resources, we want to ensure that public and private investments are informed by the best available science to ensure multiple benefits for the region. We also work with partners to continue our investment in the Environmental Improvement Program. Much like maintaining your home, our work is never complete as forests grow back and new threats like aquatic invasive species emerge. The EIP works closely with the science community to track our progress toward achieving our thresholds. Finally, we engage with the community to share our results and invite everyone to do their part because it takes all of us. It's a team effort at Lake Tahoe to protect this incredible resource. The effort is apparent of Team Tahoe when we look at the shared funding of the Environmental Improvement Program. All sectors contribute through funding and implementation of projects. Nevada's commitment includes the Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program bond program, which you'll hear about shortly. This is a $100 million commitment authorized in 2019 by Assembly Bill 18, and it is matched by federal contributions, state of California, local government, just jurisdictional contributions, the private sector. So it truly is a team effort. Once again, the EIP shows that our environment and economy are intertwined. A 2020 economic study found that the Environmental Improvement Program had resulted in a $2.6 billion economic investment from 97 to 2020, and also supports 1,700 jobs a year. So again, that environmental economic connection. All of this information can be accessed online by our Lake Tahoe information platform. The EIP project tracker shown on this slide on the right and in the graph with all the dots that represent projects around the lake allows folks to explore every project implemented, progress toward environmental goals, and detailed project funding. So if you can click on one of those buttons, you can go to an actual project fact sheet that will give you more details. With that background, I'd like to mention 2 bills you'll hear today that were submitted to this legislature by our Interim Oversight Committee. SB 10 streamlines reporting requirements for the state of Nevada and their participation in the Environmental Improvement Program. And SB 83 requests the next issuance of Nevada's EIP bonds, which are critical to provide that state of Nevada share for the Environmental Improvement Program. The funding will support implementation of priority projects on the Nevada side of Tahoe and are matched by those other sectors, the federal government, California, local, tribal, private funding. And you'll hear more about specifics from our partners at the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. We would like to thank this committee, bless you, and the state of Nevada for your continued support of Lake Tahoe. It is my pleasure to lead TRPA in our mission to protect one of the most spectacular places on planet Earth. As you will no doubt hear in public comment, there are many pressing concerns for our lake. We remain committed to finding collaborative solutions to our shared challenges with the community hand in hand. With that, I turn back to you, Chair Cruz Crawford, for any committee questions, and I thank you for your attention.
Senator Ellison.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You know, and one of the questions I had from the very beginning was on pruning some of the areas up there. And last time I was up there, you could still see areas up there that was really need to get that underbrush through. You remember several years back when we had the large fires up there. And pruning become one of the biggest things that we needed to do to get the underbrush up and save what forests we have or houses. It didn't say how much was being done, but I'm glad you did show it. But could you answer that question? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Chair. Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. Yes, it is a critical issue at Lake Tahoe, and reducing the threat of wildfire through hazardous fuels reduction has been ongoing really for about 20 years at the agency. Our big fire in 2007 was the Angora fire, and more than 250 people, our neighbors and friends, lost their homes. That put this on the map, and since then we've treated about 75,000 acres collectively in that partnership, the Forest Service, State of Nevada, local fire districts, 75,000 acres. And that is exactly some mastication. It might be understory trimming, and there's also prescribed burning that's active in the basin. And we have all of that available on the tracker, so you could actually go in and see how many acres were burned last year on prescribed burning versus mastication or other techniques that are used. Just recently, 2 years ago, a recommendation that came out of the Bi-State Fire Commission was that our agency, our governing board, should look at our rules around mechanized equipment on steep slopes. We had a prohibition that slopes above 30% grade could not have mechanized equipment. That went back many decades when those kinds of pieces of equipment were very rough on the land and there were concerns of erosion. We actually now have seen a lot of innovation and technology, so those masticators are more like spiders and they're very strategic and they're light on the land. We were able, through a lot of research and investigation, bring some changes to our board. At the time, Bud Hicks was our presidential appointee on the governing board. He was the chair of our Forest Health Committee. And we changed that to allow now mechanized equipment above 30% up to, I think, beyond 50% slopes. And there's a great deal of forest on National Forest Service land that are steeper. So we have the ability to reduce costs because hand crews are a lot more expensive. So it will bring the cost of treatment down. So that is just a little bit more, and we're happy to supply you with more information.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm glad that you're saying what we're going on out there. The other question I had was the beetles. And last time I flew over it, we went down around the airports and then back around to the mountains there. And you could see the trees that were dying. And I think isn't it from beetles, just like it is back in Oregon and some of these other states. Could you hit on that? And what are you doing to address the issues? Because once them trees are dead, they become a fire issue.
Yep, thank you, Senator. Again, thank you, Chair. Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. Devin Middlebrook, my colleague, may want to join, but yes, you're exactly correct. It's actually a double whammy. It's prolonged periods of drought and drying the soil and the trees get stressed. That's when the beetles really get in there. I know your state forester, Casey, is a source of knowledge on this and can probably speak more specifically to what's going on the Nevada side lands. But in general, that is a huge issue because we're in these swings of really boom and bust where we have so much snow one year we can barely manage it, and then we go through years of drought, and that is a lot of stress on those trees, and it's almost like think of so many straws in the cup. We're running out of water. So at some points they are removed, but it just depends on the situation. Maybe Devin wants to add to that.
Devin Middlebrook, TRPA for the record, Middlebrook. In addition to the beetles, which as you rightly have pointed out is a major issue for trees dying, there's also blister rust, which is a fungus that affects white pines, including the sugar pines, those giant pine cones that you see, and actually an invasive moth that's really going through our aspen populations as well. And we work very closely with Casey and the Department of Forestry in Nevada and our science community to stay on top of those infestations and work on projects to reduce the stress on those trees, especially those species that are susceptible to that. And then organizations like the Sugar Pine Foundation, which is a nonprofit, actually work to plant seedlings of resistant trees. So they collect seeds from trees that are seemingly more resistant to those invaders and spread those genetics in our forest to try to build a more robust population in the future.
Well, thank you so much. I just have a couple questions myself. They're probably very amateur questions. I'm the only one new here on the board. What percentage of the shoreline is California and what percentage is Nevada?
Good question, Senator. Julie Reagan, TRPA's Executive Director. So a couple things. The lake on the big picture is roughly 2/3 on the California side and 1/3 on the Nevada side. And that is interestingly how it shows up even when it comes to funding our agency. We make budget requests.
That was my next question.
We
Okay.
do. We make budget requests. It's right in the compact in our legislation that establishes the agency that we should make requests to 2/3 California and 1/3. And then in terms of actual miles of shoreline, I mean, there's 72, depending on how you count, 75 miles around. It roughly maps to that 2/3, 1/3. But there is a difference in terms of ownership. If you look at public ownership versus private ownership, of course, I mean, think of the East Shore. Nevada has entirely, a large swath of public land on the East Shore, but we could get you even that breakdown. In the early days, the majority of shoreline was privately owned. So if you think of big resorts on the South Shore, where the Forest Service now has the Tallac Historic Site, Lucky Baldwin's estate, Pope Beach, those were all private estates that are now in public ownership. Same with other state parks. So over time, we've actually made a lot of our public partners in the Forest Service and the states have done a lot of acquisitions to give more public access to the shoreline. So that has steadily gone into more public ownership over time.
Great.
It's kind of like you're in my brain right now. And then in regard to tourism,
Hello? Okay. In regard to tourism, is it a breakdown too with like 1/3 of the people coming from Nevada or?
I will get that for you
Okay.
from our tourism office partners. It's interesting. We have a great data team that tracks everything, so we probably have some of that. In general, if you just look at sheer numbers, I'll just, big picture, the bulk of the population that enjoys Tahoe is from the San Francisco Bay Area, because there's like 11 million people that live within a 4-hour drive. So just the numbers alone, would suggest that there's a lot of Californians coming all around the lake, but there are particular areas around Tahoe, whether it's Sand Harbor, that's enjoyed differently in terms of a use pattern, but we could get you all those specifics. But it's far and wide, and I can tell you our boat inspection program, we didn't have time to talk a lot about aquatic invasive species, which is a program that we manage in partnership with several others. We know that we've actually had boats from every single state in the country, even Hawaii. They've been, come over. So we do have visitors from around the country, all states, and from around the world.
Perfect, thanks. And I'm just thinking about whose duty is what, right? Who owes what to keep our Tahoe blue. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
I appreciate, thank you, Devin and Julie. And thank you for investing in that living piece as well. I've had family members that had to move to Carson because they were in the service industry and could no longer afford to live. So, yep. So thank you so much.
Really appreciate the opportunity.
care.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. We have a special treat here. We have Senator Titus presenting Senate Bill 10. I'll give her a moment to come up. If everybody can introduce themselves. So we are ready to begin our first bill hearing. I will open the hearing for Senate Bill 10. This measure revises provisions relating to certain reports. And the presenters are Senator Titus, Charlie Donahue, and Casey. We have allotted 15 minutes for your bill presentation. Senator Titus, would you like to begin?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, Chair, and Chair Cruz Crawford, and members of the Senate Committee on Natural Resources. For the record, my name is Robin Titus, and I represent Senate District 17. And District 17 basically is the western half of Nevada. I have 6 different counties that I represent: Douglas, Lyon, Mineral, Churchill, Esmeralda, and part of Nye County, specifically Tonopah. But the most important one today is the Douglas County, and where I represent that south shore of Lake Tahoe. So at the table with me, as you mentioned, is Charlie Donahue, Administrator for Division of State Lands, a state land registrar, and the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and Casey, who is our state forester fire warden, and she's of the Division of Forestry, SDCNR. Is that correct? And they're at the table with me, and they're going to be speaking later. During the 2023 and 2024 interim, I had the pleasure of serving on the Legislative Committee for the review and oversight of the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency and the Marlette Lake Water System, the Tahoe Committee. Senator Daley chaired the committee, and he's asked me to provide a brief introduction of Senate Bill 10 before turning over the table, over the presentation to the subject area professionals, which are here at the table with me. At the final meeting of the Tahoe Committee, the committee voted unanimously to request a drafting of a bill amending or eliminating certain reporting requirements by the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Specifically, the bill changes the reporting requirement from quarterly to annually for the State Land Registrar to report to the State Board of Examiners regarding the Nevada Land Bank report on lands or interest in land transferred, sold, or exchanged or leased in the Tahoe Basin. It's going to be further explained. The bill further repeals the requirement for the state forester fire warden, Casey, to report annually to certain governmental entities regarding fire prevention and forest health in Nevada portion of Lake Tahoe. I'm going to turn it over to the professionals from the departments now to explain what that really means and why this is important for us to do. Thank you, Chair Cruz Crawford.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Casey, State Forester Fire Warden. For the record, we're going to go out of order. I'm Section 2 of the bill, but I hope mine is easy, but I said that last time and it wasn't super easy. So Section 2 of SB 10 is removing the requirement to produce an annual forest health report. It's not that we don't enjoy producing the report. We just feel that it's duplicative. The purpose of that report came out of the Angora fire, the Blue Ribbon Commission that was put together by state, both and they were the California Nevada Tahoe Fire Commission looking at efficiencies that we could have had in multiple areas. This report was to report on the fuel reduction forest health work that was happening specific on the Nevada side of the Tahoe Basin. Since then, the Tahoe Fire and Fuels Team has been created. It's an interagency partnership, as you heard about a little bit earlier, where we all participate. They've created a forest action plan. They keep that up to date. So they have a path for where they're going, and they have the website that you heard about, the EIP tracker that tells you where they've been. And so we feel that this annual report to the legislature is duplicative, you can actually get better data by looking at the EIP tracker. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I'm going to hand it over to Charlie for the other half of this request.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Charlie Donahue. I serve as the Administrator for the Division of State Lands. The modification in the reporting is to report annually to the Board of Examiners instead of on a quarterly basis for lands or interests in lands that the agency has either exchanged, sold, acquired in the basin. I thought it was important to, I have one slide, and I'll be quick. In 1999, when the program established in the Environmental Improvement Program was getting established on the Nevada side, the administrator at that time borrowed some language that kind of morphed over time with the original Tahoe Bond Act from 1985. The legislature approved $31 million for the state land registrar to acquire sensitive lands in the basin. And then the requirement was to report to the Board of Examiners. And in 1987, that was changed, well, the legislature also wanted that issue to go to the voters in 1986. In 1987, the language was morphed just a little bit, that if I wanted to exchange or modify lands that we had acquired or interests in lands that we had acquired, we had to go to the Board of Examiners and IFC. In 1989, when the state actually started acquiring lands in the basin, and we acquired them for 10 years, we have approximately 500, or what we refer to as urban lots in the basin. They range from less than a quarter of an acre up to 10 acres. It's probably our largest parcel. But in 1999, this language of reporting to the Board of Examiners on a quarterly basis was borrowed from the language from 1989. That worked great when the state land registrar was picking up and had multiple transactions in escrow. It made an awful lot of sense to then just report out to the Board of Examiners the lands that we had secured in the basin, instead of having them held in escrow, waiting for the Board of Examiners to take action. So that language was borrowed from 89, placed in the statute in 1999, and today we just are not acquiring the lands that we used to acquire from the original Tahoe Bond Act. The majority of our transactions have to do with coverage, square feet associated with trying to mitigate coverage in the basin or trying to provide coverage to a private party who may want to be enhancing their home or remodeling their home or expanding their home. So that's really what it is. The original intention, I'll be very frank, was to do what Casey is doing, trying to eliminate that reporting. Senator Titus asked me during the interim hearing if I'd be willing to do annual reporting. More than happy to do annual reporting, because we also need to report annually to the TRPA as well. So that's the nexus of this minor modification to statute. And I'd stand ready for any questions.
Thank you, and I like that. And the reason I do is because you've got snow impact, then you've got tourism that come in the summer. So it's a good thing to get a whole look at the whole year versus just quarterly, and then you're back doing it over and over and over. So annually, I mean, they might like it a little sooner, but if they got to look at one individual spot, it's easy to do, but versus the whole area. So I think that's just good business sense myself, but thank you.
If I might, Madam Chair, as the presenters mentioned, I wasn't going to let them off the hook and not have to report at all.
Okay, next, thank you so much for the presentation. Next, we'll hear testimony in support of Senate Bill 10. As a reminder, we'll be limiting all testifiers to 2 minutes each. Testifiers are encouraged to summarize their positions and submit more comprehensive testimony in writing if they go over. And we're going to begin here in Carson City. Was there anyone here to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 10? Okay, Las Vegas. Is there anyone in Las Vegas that would like to provide testimony in support? AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to provide support and testimony?
If you would like to testify in support of SB 10, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to participate at this time. Oh, I'm sorry, Chair, you have one person that just raised their hand.
Perfect, thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Steve Teixeira, and I'm here on behalf of the Tahoe Chamber of Commerce. We'd like to offer our testimony in support of SB 10 for the reasons that the witnesses before you today articulated. Thank you very much.
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to participate at this time.
Thank you, AVH. Next, we're going to hear testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 10. Let us begin in Carson City. Seeing none in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition for Senate Bill 10?
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 10, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to participate at this time.
Thank you, AVH. Finally, is there anyone wishing to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 10? Here.
Ellie Waller, W-A-L-L-E-R. I am supporting this, but coming in as neutral. I do believe, as suggested, it should be reported once annually. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to testify in neutral in Las Vegas? AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in neutral for Senate Bill 10?
If you would like to testify neutral on SB 10, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to participate at this time.
I will invite Senator Titus back for final remarks.
Thank you, Chair Cruz Crawford and members of this committee. I like to hold folks accountable. I like to hold agencies accountable. I truly believe that duplication in reporting, though, is a waste of everybody's time. So this is an important bill, I think, just to clean up some language, and hopefully you all support it. Thank you very much for hearing it.
Thank you, Senator. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 10. And I will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 83. This measure requires the issuance of bonds for environmental improvement project in the Lake Tahoe Basin. Will the presenters, looks like they're following suit here. Charlie Donahue, Hillary Stoller, please come to the table. And we have, sorry, state your name again. Sorry, I apologize. Charlie.
Yeah, my apologies. Charlie Donahue, I serve as the administrator for state lands. The agency deputy administrator is present with me as well. That's Hillary Stoller. And to our right is Kevin Palmerhurst. He's the Tahoe program manager. He's here.
Kevin, what? Sorry, I apologize.
Kevin Frommertz, Fromherz.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We have allotted 15 minutes for this bill presentation. Please begin when you're ready.
Yeah, sure. Excuse us. Sorry, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Charlie Donahue, Administrator for the Division of State Lands. Going to be doing a brief overview of the Division of State Lands Environmental Improvement Program request. As you heard in Julie's presentation, and thank you, Julie, for teeing up our presentation to the extent that you did. I won't repeat what Julie was talking about in terms of the partnership up in the basin. It's critical, it's strong. Can you advance that slide? As Julie mentioned, in 2009, AB 18 authorized the issuance of $100 million in general obligation bonds. Typically, the agency has come back every session and asked for a draw against that $100 million, and this is no exception. I will inform the chair and members of the committee that last week I did submit a written amendment to the bill, changing our request from 19 million down to 10.5 million. And the reason for that is because unfortunately Division of State Parks was not able to secure the funds that they thought they might be able to secure for the next phase of the Van Sickle Bi-State Park. Without those funds, there really wasn't a need for lands to be asking for in excess of $8.5 million in general obligation bonds at this time. So the Environmental Improvement Program is implemented by the Nevada Tahoe Resource Team. It's an interagency, interdisciplinary team that's housed within the Division of State Lands. We have state lands employees. Kevin, the program manager, is a state land employee. We have a representative from Park to address the recreational needs in the basin. We have a forester from Division of Forestry. We have a wildlife specialist from the Department of Wildlife. Collectively, this group implements Nevada's share of the Environmental Improvement Program with project work both on the shoreline in the Nevada Lake Tahoe State Park, as well as the urban lots that I just mentioned in terms of their management and treatment. In the last 2 years, the team has done an incredible amount of work implementing forest health projects in the state park as well as on our urban lots. We've done and been able to catch up on all of our pile burning, which we were unable to do for various reasons. Some of that has to do with prescriptions. They weren't right. Some of it had to do early on. We were impacted by the fact that the state was basically under a prescribed burn moratorium because of Little Valley Fire. We've gotten over that hurdle, and the team has done an amazing job, in my mind, catching up with that backlog and really addressing that need. It doesn't mean that all of our piles have been consumed. We still have piles out there on the landscape because those piles need to cure for a period of time so that when we do ignite them, that they're going to burn as clean as possible and that we won't be impacting air quality in the area. The team was very successful in implementing a water quality and erosion control project with Washoe County that took 2 field seasons to complete. And we're now moving forward with the development of a master plan at Sand Harbor, as Senator Scheibel, you heard during the interim, as well as moving forward with elements of the Van Sickle Bi-State Park. This slide is a reflection of that $100 million and where we stand today. As I pointed out, our request today is $10.5 million. And this will mean that we will have about $48 million left in authority moving forward. Most likely in 2027, I'm going to suggest that we move forward and extend the life of this program because currently it's set to sunset in 2030. Thank you. And I'd prefer to have that conversation a little bit earlier than in 2029. Go ahead. This is basically the breakdown of the 10.5. We're making a push to get more infrastructure in the state park with $3.5 million. Some of that's going to go to Van Sickle. Some of that will most likely go to the Sand Harbor Master Plan Development Plan. We have a little over $2 million for forest health. We plan to partner with Washoe County for another water quality project in the incline area, as well as with the Nevada Tahoe Conservation District down in southern portion of the basin at Kale. And we have monitoring for our sensitive wildlife species embedded, as well as some administrative costs. And with that, Madam Chair, I'd be more than happy to take any of your questions. And if I don't know them, I got 2 very bright people on either side of me who probably could answer them.
That's good. Okay, Senator Ellison?
Go ahead.
You guys are gonna love me. I do have some questions. You know, when you go back when Miller introduced the first $100 million that went out there, and that was in '97. and you look back through the extension on the bonds, all the way back to today's date, retiring what you had on the bonds, what have the bonds paid back on the original debt? That's my first question, if you could answer that.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Madam Chair, through you to the Senator. Senator, I believe what you're referring to in 97 was the original $82 million investment of the state. And there were actually, if my memory serves me correctly, around 56 million in bonds sold because the legislature wanted to ensure that projects that Parks and NDOT were working on at that time, that the state was giving credit for those. And that credit amounted to the difference between 56 or 58 and $82 million.
Was that the widening of the road? They cleaned up the area down around the roads that went from all the way from Reno basically to down to the casinos. I know they did a lot of work out there on the highway. Is that the money you're talking about?
Thank you for the question, Senator. That is a portion of it. The NDOT was in the process of reconstructing their bin walls, particularly around the Lincoln Park area, and the Division of State Lands came in and partnered with NDOT and actually took care of the responsibilities for the water quality features within that larger project. And you're right, NDOT has done a number of projects from Spooner Summit all the way down to State Line.
In the 10.5 million, you explained what that's gonna go for. But didn't you have to spend quite a bit of money when you lost the tunnel there for a while? You had to go and do repairs to the tunnel that went in. It's a highway that goes in, a little tunnel. Didn't that collapse or have problems with one side?
I'm not, excuse me, my apologies, Madam Chair, through you to the Senator.
Go ahead, answer directly.
Okay, Senator, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about in terms of a tunnel collapse.
Yeah, and I remember just catching it on the news that they had some repairs that had to go in and do damage. They had to, I guess, go out around it or something.
There was a time period, Senator, where SR 28 was closed and you actually had to go through Reno and Carson City to get to the south end of the lake. But my recollection is that had to do with the effluent, IVGIT effluent line and their need to address some emergency repair work on it.
I remember picking it up on TV or here at the legislature, and I remember that happening. Okay, well, thank you. I'm just trying to say where we're at and where we're going. We got a long future, and I know we got a heavy budget that's gonna be ahead of us, so trying to look at everything and see what money's gonna be best going where. It's gonna be up to the governor after Ways and Means gets done. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Senator Hinson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Looks like the bulk of that money is going to be spent at Sand Harbor. As I recall, I saw some stats. Sand Harbor for outdoor recreation Nevada is something like 50% of all of the entire outdoor recreation. That and Red Rock, I think, were the two big giant pools in the state. Can you give me some rough ideas on that? Sand Harbor is very, very, very popular and very, very, very well used. So I'm kind of wondering, are we reaching the point where we're kind of loving it to death or what?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Sand Harbor is very popular. I believe it's the second most popular state park or portion of the state park. Valley of Fire, I think, is probably the most significant one. This is part of the effort that Division of State Parks and the resource team are grappling with right now in terms of the master plan. The Sand Harbor has aging infrastructure, and we have addressed some of that. But Parks, and I think this was very, very wise of Parks, they decided, let's, really investigate what our needs are. They're moving forward with a new reservation system up at Sand Harbor so that it addresses some of the capacity issues at the that portion of the park, as well as it addresses some of the issues associated with traffic and backup on SR 28. So I think the time is ripe to do that. That I think it was 4.5 million, that's not gonna get the job done.
I was gonna
I mean,
say, that seems like a pretty small amount for some of the, you guys are biting off a lot to do there, and I'm not sure that amount of money is gonna get you too far.
Well, and that was one reason why we decided to move forward with our amendment, Senator, is because I don't want to be asking for authority that we can't put into play. You know, we'll come back and we'll ask for that authority in future legislative sessions when we've got things vetted out a little bit better at Sand Harbor and Van Sickle. And I would be remiss if I didn't turn it over to Kevin Fromhurst, who used to be the park supervisor at Sand Harbor and may want to make a comment or two.
He looks delighted. Go ahead.
Kevin Frommertz for the record, FROMHERZ. Yeah, so Sand Harbor is exceeding over 1 million visitors annually. Most of that is in the Memorial Day to Labor Day season. And you're seeing record visitation and record numbers of visitors turned away to find other recreation sites. So the goal of the master plan has been to redevelop the 1970s design of that park and bring it up into the 21st century and hopefully give us a facility that will last for the years to come and will be a lot more sustainable to manage for the park.
Well, just so you know, in fact, just the opposite. I've been amazed how well you've been able, the walkways, the parking, you guys have done a marvelous job considering there's this constant escalation of demand. So no criticism at all. I'm just kind of wondering, like, you know, because even though that, you know, million visitors, I'm old enough to remember when we used to literally camp out on Nevada Beach. My family owned property at Lake Tahoe at Kings Beach going back to 1950. So grew up there practically. But yeah, that constant escalation of demand is so huge. I'll talk to you later about Valley of Fire and Red Rock. Is that the same thing, or they're two different parks down south? They're the same thing? I thought they were.
Yeah, Valley of Fire is a state, sorry, Charlie Donahue for the record. Valley of Fire is a state park and Red Rocks is a federal conservation area.
Oh, I am confused then. I'm sorry. No, well, thank you, Madam Chair. No, I you guys are doing a great job. Don't get me wrong. I'm just wondering if you had enough money, you need more money to do some of the things to try to keep that demand reasonable. What?
Are you handing it out?
Well, actually, I should, I'm actually pretty liberal on giving away other people's money. So yeah, I'm good at that.
Soundbite.
I didn't hear that.
Okay.
How long did it take you to get to with the covered way?
Thank you so much for your presentation. Any other committee members? Okay, awesome. So we'll be respectful of people's time. After we do comments and stuff, we're not going to take any closing remarks, okay? Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you very much, committee.
Absolutely. So next, we're going to hear testimony in support of Senate Bill 83. As a reminder, we're limiting testifiers to 2 minutes. Testifiers are encouraged to summarize their positions and submit more comprehensive testimony in writing. Let's us begin in Carson City for those in support. In Las Vegas? Seeing none. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to provide support testimony?
If you would like to testify in support of SB 83, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon once again. My name is Steve Teixeira. The last name is spelled T-E-S-H-A-R-A, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for Tahoe Chamber. We would like to offer our support for SB 83. And I think here, not only is it important that the Nevada state investment continue, but your investment is leveraged with the state of California, with the federal government, the tribal resources, with local government resources and the private sector. And of course, our support for the EIP has been many years, and we often support the private sector's participation, encouraging them to hold up their end of the deal, if you will. So we appreciate the great work that your staff does on the Tahoe Resource Team for the state of Nevada. They've been a model for others. And we very much appreciate Mr. Donahue's explanation of why the amount that's being asked for this year has been reduced. We understand that and we support it. So thank you very much.
If you recently just joined us, we are currently in support of SB 83. If you'd like to testify in support, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no callers wishing to participate at this time.
Thank you. Next, we will hear testimony in opposition of Senate Bill 83. Let's begin here in Carson.
Thank you again, Ellie Waller, W-A-L-L-E-R. It's not clear how much of the proposed budget goes to TRPA for implementation. That's my opposition. During the course of the Legislative Committee for Review and Oversight of the TRPA, the committee received testimony by many in the public at all the meetings and from other stakeholders that indicated the need for updates regarding the status of the environmental standards. Land development is inevitable action. Infrastructure and buildings, after all, have become synonymous with jobs and commerce, the self-propelling engine of never-ending growth. But such growth comes at what cost? Suburban and commercial vertical sprawl in the Tahoe Basin with over-tourism, habitat loss, evacuation uncertainty, wildfire inevitability, vehicle mile traveled standards in noncompliance. At the final meeting of that committee, a letter was sent as Senator Titus stated, the agency provide the committee with the status and update of the environmental assessment conducted in the 2012 regional plan and updates any plans for progress and revisions. In our opinion, the public states TRPA's 9-page response letter did not provide an implementation plan, but punted by stating we will be prepared to report to the interim committee again in 2025-26. We, the locals, are not against tourism, visitors, or development, but TRPA is greatly over-prioritized, in our opinion, unaffordable housing issues, which is not a compact requirement, while unsustainable development and recreation are jeopardizing public health and safety and ignoring carrying capacity issues and impacts. And I'll close with, we would instead like to see investment in improvements existing infrastructure, redevelopment by removing blight and arrested decay, sustainability of current recreational access, not increasing access, as you've heard millions at Sand Harbor, and public health and safety through evacuation planning. Thank you.
Thank you. That looks like that's everybody in Carson City, so we'll now take testimony in opposition in Las Vegas. AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 83?
If you would like to testify in opposition of SB 83, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hi there. Apologies. I am hoping to call and offer support, not opposition. I believe I was just like 2 seconds late in the queue. The live stream is a little bit delayed, or from the phone version.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Cruz Crawford and committee. My name is Noah Banayan, and I'm the Government Affairs Manager at the League to Save Lake Tahoe, which you might know as the League or Keep Tahoe Blue. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today in support of SB 83, a bill that requires the state to issue bonds to fund lake-saving projects through the Environmental Improvement Program. This bill is critical for maintaining the lake's clarity and accessibility for Nevadans and visitors to the Nevada side of the lake and all over. These projects that this bill and this funding would support can range from management of aquatic invasive species that cloud the lake and threaten native species to trail building for more sustainable and accessible recreation. The League serves as an implementing partner for the EIP, and we are grateful for the sustained resources from the state of Nevada offering their share of the EIP. And we look forward to supporting this bill this session and working with this committee and the legislature and the TRPA and ensuring that these funds are spent appropriately on lake saving projects. Thank you.
AVH, is there anyone else on the line for opposition for Senate Bill 83?
Yes, Chair, queuing them up now.
My name is Rhonda Teicer, RONDA TYCER. I'm a 34-year resident of Lake Tahoe. At the end of the 2025 Legislative Oversight Committee for the TRPA, Chair Skip Daly asked TRPA to provide an EIS to be completed before the upcoming 2025 Nevada session. TRPA did not do this. He also asked TRPA to show the impacts of their efforts on a reduction in VMT. TRPA did not do that either. Instead, they drafted a 9-page letter saying that their priorities and processes included EISs for various projects. They did not mention why they could not provide numbers showing a VMT reduction. The problem TRPA faces is that in spite of all its crowing and glowing reports, the clarity of Lake Tahoe is still at its worst. And vehicle miles traveled are increasing from increased tourism, no matter how they try to fudge the numbers. So we ask this legislature to not simply award TRPA more money through SB 83, but like Skip Daly, require that the TRPA's funding is tied to results in terms of improved lake clarity and reduced VMT. Thank you very much.
Hi, I am sorry. I think I missed the, I wanted to call in regards to support, and I think I just missed it. So my name is Olivia Sajor, and again, I'm calling in support of SB 83 and the important work that Nevada is doing to protect and restore the Lake Tahoe Basin. I'd also like to recognize the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency for its efforts in balancing the environmental preservation with responsible development. Their work is essential to maintaining the health of Lake Tahoe, and I urge you all to support this bill. Thank you.
Chair, you have no more callers wishing to participate at this time.
Okay, finally, we are going to move to neutral. Is there anyone wishing to provide testimony in neutral in Carson City? In Las Vegas? AVH, is there anyone on the line wishing to testify in neutral, opposition, for? We'll take whatever you got there for 83.
If you would like to provide testimony on SB 83, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're excited to hear what you have to say.
Hello? Yeah, you overlooked me as opposing this bill, so I would like to give a comment to opposing this bill.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Learnhardt Zephyr-Cove for the record. The Tahoe Regional Planning Agency has lost its way. They have become under scrutiny during last year's Oversight Committee meeting for not fulfilling their mission, particularly regarding providing public transportation and environmental stewardship. The California Attorney General voices the same opinion in his letter to them. El Dorado County has recently joined Placer County in creating its own transportation JPA due to frustrating with TRPA and their subsidiary Tahoe Transportation District. The catastrophic fires recently in Southern California are a repeated warning to all of us at the Tahoe Basin. So was the Caldor fire. Yet TRPA was pushing the road diet to narrow Highway 50 to 2 lanes to accommodate bike lanes. This was in 22. Thanks to Governor Lombardo, who stopped the NDOT reconfiguration of this highway, they stopped it. They now have designated Tahoe Transportation District an organization to chair the state line to state line bike path. This is in total disregard of local safety and fire evacuation routes and should not be rewarded with more public funds. Yet Congress recently passed last year H.R. 1274 with a windfall of $415 million for the next 10 years funding of TRPA. Why do they need additional funds? I urge you to say no to reckless planning, no to underfunded evacuation infrastructure, and no to additional taxes that prevent public consent. Our community's safety must come first. In addition, and on the neutral basis, I'm all for natural resources getting the funds through the bonds from you, because I feel that the Sand Harbor project is going excellent. Thank you for your attention.
Chair, you have no more callers at this time.
Thank you so much. I will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 83. Our final business is public comment. Please remember, public comment is limited to 2 minutes per person. Is there any public comment here in Carson City? Any in Las Vegas? Seeing none. AVH, is there anyone waiting to provide public comment on the phone lines?
If you would like to participate in public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, you have no one wishing to participate at this time.
Seeing no further public comment, that concludes our meeting. Our next meeting will be next Thursday, February 20th. This meeting is adjourned. I hope everybody has a lovely day.